Okay, welcome to video number 4, which is going to be our introduction to longitude. We are going to do some drawing here. So we're going to build another diagram similar to what we did the other day on Thursday with latitude. So you're going to need a piece of paper, the protractor, and a ruler. Those should be out available on your desk or nearby. And we're going to do a lot of similar skills that we did on Thursday. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by labeling this diagram longitude. Normally I have students do this on the back of their latitude diagram. If you need to use a fresh piece of paper, you're welcome to. All right. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we need to construct a circle that we can start with. So I'm going to eyeball the diagonals and kind of get an idea of where the center of the paper is. I'm just going to draw a dot. Then I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to put the dot in the guide hole in the center of the protractor, and I'm going to trace the outside of the protractor, the curved part, and then I'm going to flip the protractor over, line up the circle on the dot again, make sure it's inside the tracing. Then I'm going to trace the bottom so that I have a nice circle. Like so. Okay, so now this is where things get different from what they were before. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to draw a line from the center point, only from the center point. And I'm going to draw a radius. So a radius is half of a circle. Yesterday we drew the diameter, going all the way across from one side to the other side. That was a diameter. This time I'm only going to draw a radius. So a radius is only half of a circle. So there's my radius right there. Now this is going to represent our starting place for longitude. The name of the starting place for longitude is prime meridian. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that in, prime meridian. All right, so the lines of longitude that we're going to draw are called meridians. Those are the iso lines of longitude. The word prime means first. It means the beginning. And so this is the word that tells us that this is going to be our starting place. So again, like the equator, the prime meridian is given the value of 0. So this is where we're going to measure all of our angles from. All right, so it's time to measure some angles. So I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to line up the hole on the dot, and I'm going to line up my 0 guides on the prime meridian. Now this time again we're going to do a 15-degree interval, so I need this to be 0. So just reviewing the protractor again, it has 2 scales. It has a scale on the inside and it has a scale on the outside. We need the value here to be 0. So if I count down 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, the next number would be 0. That works. So I want to be looking at the inside scale. If I use the outside scale, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, the next value should be 180, and it's not, so we're going to ignore the numbers on the outside scale for right now. All right, so I'm going to do a 15-degree interval. So I'm going to start off by marking my first 15 here, and then 15 plus 15 is 30, and 30 plus 15 is 45. And I should label these as I go. So you guys can pause the video. Pause the video at certain points when you are ready to move forward and do your own drawing. Everybody needs to do their own drawing. Part of building this is part of experiencing it and understanding it. The camera's in the way. So you can pause the video to move forward, or you can do it at the same time that I'm doing it. Either way is fine. If you are good at fast forwarding and you pause, because this part, I imagine you guys understand what you're supposed to do. So it's possible you could fast forward to the right part. This is an interesting part though. Okay, so with this particular case, I can actually go all the way around to the other side. On latitude, we stopped at 90 because we got to the top of the Earth, the North Pole. This is longitude. It doesn't work the same way. So we're going to be able to continue going around the circle right now. So I'm at 90. So my next one is 90 plus 15, so 105. 105 plus 15 is going to be 120. So I'm still on the inside scale. 135. 150. 165. And then I get to 180. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and do what you need to do to get to this point. Okay, so you should be at this point right now. You should have the prime meridian marked with 0. You should have a 15 degree interval going around the globe, or around the circle. And what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the 180 line, the 180 mark over here. So in a second, we're going to draw a meridian for this. But what I want to do is I want to give you guys some perspective. So this right here, this spot, this is the North Pole. So I'm just going to put a little flag up here. All right, so that right there is the North Pole. We're looking down on the Earth rather than from a side view. When we did the latitude drawing, we were looking at a side view. We could see the North Pole at the top and the South Pole at the bottom. This time, we're looking down on the globe from the top. Sorry for the hiccup there. So I brought home the plastic globe. So here's the idea, is we're looking down on the globe right there at the North Pole. Okay, so that said, so one of the ways that I think about longitude is I think of longitude as being, this is like somebody's head. This is where their nose might be, and their ears might be over here on the sides, and this is the back of the head. So if you feel the back of your skull, there's a bone back there. It's called the occipital bone. That's the bone that really hurts bad when you fall, when you're roller skating and you hit the floor and bang your head against the floor. That's that bone that hits the floor really hard. So that bone is in the very back of your head. So we think about 0 being the front of your face, while the occipital bone is the back of your head. And this point up here, the North Pole, is like up in your hair, at the top of your head. And this basically gives us a frame of reference, an idea about how longitude works. So if this is your nose, I could go to my left, or I could go to my right, and my ear would be over here, or ear would be over here. But if I continued going to my left, at some point I would come back onto my right-hand side. That's one of the things about longitude is I can go to a certain direction, but end up on the opposite side. We're going to talk about that again in a little bit. Okay, so let's draw a meridian. So these, again, lines of longitude, isolines of longitude, are called meridians. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to connect the point from the North Pole, and I'm going to connect that with the 180. Now, this should be almost an extension of the prime meridian. So this should be pretty much a very straight line. Now, this is a completely different number. This line here is called the anti-meridian, and anti meaning other or opposite. And the anti-meridian is the back of the head, while the prime meridian is the front or the nose, right? Okay, so combined together, they split the globe into 2 halves, the left half and the right half. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so we have the prime meridian, we have the anti-meridian. The value of the anti-meridian from the North Pole this way, around the side of the globe, is 180. The value of the prime meridian from the North Pole around the globe to the South Pole is the prime meridian. That's the 0. So the prime meridian is the place where we're going to measure from. So again, whatever angle we want, we're going to measure from the prime meridian to that point. All right, so what we're going to do next, we're going to do something to save a little time. We're actually going to draw 2 meridians at the same time. To do this, we're going to take a ruler, and you want to do this carefully. It's actually really satisfying when you do it. Take your ruler and line it up very carefully. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start off at the 15, and you're going to go to the North Pole. Then you're going to go through the North Pole to the other side. Now, what you've done here is you've actually drawn two separate meridians. This meridian here, this is the 15 meridian. This is not the 15 meridian. This is going to be whatever values over here. So I'm not going to number these yet. I'm going to come back to that in a little while. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to draw all of these extended two meridians, one on this side and then one on this side, as an extension through the straight edge, through the center. So you can pause the video, do the drawing, and then fast forward or jump to the point where you're caught up. I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's really challenging sometimes to go right through the center. You want to, if you want it to look really nice and really satisfying, you want to make sure that they're going through exactly the same intersection point each line. See, I'm a little bit off right there. So again, I'm drawing two meridians at the same time. So the first meridian is going from the labeled mark where I measured to the center point. And then I'm just extending the other side so I don't have to do the measurements with the protractor, but I am still getting 15 degrees on the other side. It's just a nice little shortcut using the ruler. That way I can cut out doing the measuring. So each one of your meridians, this is a good place where we can do a little review. Each one of your meridians that you're drawing is separated by 15 degrees. And earlier in lesson 209, we learned that the Earth is spinning at 15 degrees per hour. And so each one of these meridians that we're drawing would be equal to approximately an hour in time. And the time zones would be roughly drawn around these particular meridians. All right, so I've drawn all my meridians. Now I need to label the other side. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the prime meridian. So we know that the interval is 15. If I measure this way, that's 15 degrees. So is this. This is also 15 degrees. So I'm going to label this 15 degrees. And again, they're going by an interval of 15, so this is going to be 30. We're always measuring from the prime meridian out towards the back. So, and then I have 45, 60, 75, 90 at the ear, 105, 120, 135, 150, 165, and then back to 180 at the back. Okay, so again, let's think about this as being the nose. There's ears here on the left and right, and then this is the back of your head. So when we talk about people, we have our left side and our right side. When we talk about the Earth, we have different names for the same idea. The prime meridian and the anti-meridian split the Earth in half vertically into two different halves, the left side and the right side, but we don't use those words. We use different words. So if you remember, I'm going to draw this. You don't have to draw this. I'm just going to do this on a quick note. You probably remember your four different compass directions. So we've already talked about two on Thursday in our previous activity with latitude. We have north and south. The other ones you should remember from middle school. There's a lot of different ways. One of the ways that I learned it was never eat shredded wheat. All right, so that's one idea. The other one is never eat soggy waffles, and my favorite, never ever smoke weed. All right, so that all said, these are the 4 different ways. This is the different ways that you can remember the sequence. You do need to know that the east is on the right and west is on the left. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. So Marley Bull suggested that she remembers it as we. And I love this. This is a great way to remember it. If you're looking at the prime meridian, I'm going to go back to my diagram here. If you're looking at the prime meridian, so here's the prime meridian, and I split it in 2. So here's the center point, and I put we. I think of it like We Are the World, name of a famous song from my generation. So we are the world. So if you do that at the prime meridian, and only works when you're looking at the prime meridian, everything on this side will be west, and everything on this side will be east. So I'm going to label all of my numbers with the appropriate direction. Whenever we do latitude or longitude, we have to give the direction. And the reason why is because there's 2 possible numbers on both sides of the chart. So we have numbers over here, such as 90, but we also have a 90 over here. So we have to be able to tell the difference between them, and we use directions to do that. In math, we use positive and negatives. On latitude and longitude, we use our compass directions. So longitude only does sideways. Now, that's a little difficult to see here. In the next video, I'm going to go back to the Google Earth model, and I'm going to demonstrate these same ideas, this same diagram on the Google Earth model in 3D, and you're going to be able to see how a longitude is actually looking sideways rather than looking up or down. All right. So again, with longitude, longitude always starts off at the prime meridian. So there's our starting place right there. We can measure an angle from the prime meridian. So there, right there, that's 15 degrees. Or over here, this is 30 degrees. We can also measure all the way around. We can measure from here all the way around to 180. All right, so this is, we're going to do a little math review. And this is also going to be one of those places where I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to pause the video. You can think about it for a minute, answer the question, and then play the video again, and I'll tell you the answer. So this is a self-check kind of situation. All right, so a little bit of review. So in middle school, you probably learned what an acute angle is. So I want you to pause the video, and I want you to think about what an acute angle is. All right. So an acute angle is anything less than 90 degrees. So if I'm measuring from the prime meridian, I can measure anything that's less than 90. So 15 degrees, that's an acute angle. 45 degrees, that's an acute angle because it's less than 90. All right. So anything inside this pie piece right here, but not including 90, anything inside that pizza slice right there, or this pizza slice over here, that would be an acute angle. All right, so then we hit 90. Well, what do we call a 90-degree angle? Pause and think about it. Okay, so the word you should have thought of when you think of a 90-degree angle is a right angle. So in math, we very often do little squares inside the angles to indicate that they're right angles. A right angle is 90 degrees. So to do a 90-degree angle, I'd measure from the prime meridian out to 90 degrees. That would be a right angle. Now, one of the other things we can do with longitude is we can do another kind of angle. This kind of angle allows us to measure past 90 degrees. So something all the way from the prime meridian to something way past 90. So think about what the word is that describes an angle that's past 90 degrees, like that. Pause, think about it. Okay, so the name of an angle past 90 degrees is an obtuse angle. So in longitude, with longitude, because we can go halfway around the circle, we could do an acute angle. There's an acute angle right there. We can do a right angle going to 90. There's a right angle. But we can also do an obtuse angle going past 90. There's an obtuse angle. In latitude, the diagram that we drew before on Thursday, ask yourself the same question. Can we do an acute angle in latitude? Can we do a right angle in latitude? Can we do an obtuse angle in latitude? Pause and think about those three questions. Okay, so let's review. So can I do an acute angle? So if I'm measuring from the equator and an acute angle is anything less than 90, I could go from 0 to 15. That's an acute angle. And 0 to 30, that's an acute angle. You can also go in the other direction, 0 to 45. That's still an acute angle because it's less than 90. I can do a right angle. I can go from 0 to the North Pole or from 0 to the South Pole. So those would be examples of 90-degree right angles. Can I do an obtuse angle? Well, if I do an obtuse angle, the problem is that I come back to the same measurement. So if I go from here, the definition of latitude is measured from the equator. So if I go past the North Pole like this, what I'm really doing is I'm just measuring from the other side. So we cannot do obtuse angles in latitude. We can only do right angles or acute angles. We're never going to get a value more than 90. Okay, going back to longitude. So let's do a real quick review or wrap up with longitude. So the lines of longitude are called meridians. And there's obviously meridians inside this. I just haven't drawn them. So meridians are isolines of longitude. The directions that we can go are east or west. And remember, we are the world with the we when you're looking at the prime meridian. All right, so this is the end of video 4. What we're going to do next is I'm going to do some of the same logic, some of these same, drawing some of these same meridians on the 3-dimensional Google Earth so that it makes a little bit more sense. If you have any questions about drawing, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, you can end this and move on to video number 5.